In this video, I'll uncover some of the best times you should eat if you want to lose weight. The topic of weight loss is incredibly confusing. First of all, there's an enormous amount of misinformation out there about it. And the other thing is that there is so much conflicting research. One piece of research puts you in this direction, read another piece of research, and it puts you in the opposite. Now, when we break this down a little bit further and we start talking about the best times to place your meals in order to lose weight, oh my gosh, that is a mess when it comes to the research. So that's why in this video, we're going to try to break it down and make it very simple for you. And we're going to talk about the best time to eat to lose weight. So stick around to the end of this video. But before we get started, I'm Dr. Zyrowski and welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, it's a pleasure to have you here. Be sure to hit that notification bell and join our notification community. That way I can help you excel your health and your life. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the conventional wisdom that is associated with the best times to eat and also just weight loss in general, because, I think there's a lot of danger in this conventional wisdom as it has led so many people astray. There's so many people who have obesity problems. There's so many people who have serious health conditions following this conventional wisdom for many years. Now, conventional wisdom first starts off with 6 small meals a day. Now, 6 small meals a day is something that I actually heard one of the trainers at the gym the other day teaching somebody that they need to do in order to start losing weight. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wanted to scream because I knew it was not the best route for that individual to take in order to lose weight. In fact, if you're doing 6 small meals a day, one of the things that you're going to do is you're going to constantly be just spiking those metabolic hormones and cause yourself to have a lot of cravings. Now, and this individual's thought process is that, 6 small meals a day is going to boost your metabolism, and as a result, you will burn more fat. But of course, that's going to be a very difficult and challenging thing to accomplish, because what they're trying to do too is calorie restrict with multiple meals. I mean, have you ever tried calorie restricting with multiple meals? There is not a more miserable way to calorie restrict. And so we have to make sure that if we are using some of these different strategies in order to lose weight, we're not falling into this conventional wisdom that sets so many people up for failure. And by the way, this whole topic came about the other day when I was actually sitting in a waiting room and I was watching some big TV show talk about how important a breakfast is and how important having a big breakfast is, in fact, because if you're not having breakfast, it's associated with so many different health conditions. Now, when we look at breakfast in general, there's so much research out there that points to having a huge breakfast and also making that, your biggest meal of the day, but your most important meal of the day as well. And the fact is that, even though a lot of research points to that, there's so much research that actually conflicts that same report. Okay, so we have to make sure that we take all this stuff into consideration. And when we look at all the research out there, once again, even though there's an enormous amount of research, and this is where a lot of people get caught up in this, because there's so much research saying that you should go in and have a big breakfast, and there's so much research saying that's a bad idea. Now, anyway, moving past that, there's also the conventional wisdom of don't skip your meals, because if you skip your meals, what's going to happen is you're going to drive down your metabolism, and as a result, you are going to start gaining weight. Okay, this is where this idea of 6 small meals a day comes in. Now, like I said at the very beginning, there's so many people who have been led astray by this type of information, and there's so much missing in it. I mean, could you imagine actually going in telling somebody that the most important meal of the day is breakfast, but yet you're not really talking about what you should eat for breakfast? So the person wakes up and they're eating toast and jelly and bagels and all the typical breakfast foods that a lot of people eat, the average person eats. And so there's so much more to this conversation. Just talking about the actual meal times, who cares? But what are you eating? We'll get more to that in just a moment. Now, the other thing we want to take into consideration in this conversation is a 24-hour internal clock. Running behind the scenes in the brain, we have this 24-hour internal clock that is responsible for sleep cycles, energy cycles, metabolic regulation, which we're going to really focus on here, and body weight regulation as well, which we're going to focus on. Now, this is really interesting because this study of the different circadian rhythm and how it actually is associated with metabolic hormones can tell us a few things. First of all, when we look at these different studies, what they show us is that insulin sensitivity is highest in the morning. The other thing that it shows us is that the beta cells in the pancreas are most responsive in the morning as well. Now, moving a little bit further, it will go on to tell us that if you are eating past 8 o'clock at night, it's highly associated with weight gain, but also associated with many different conditions, gastrointestinal conditions, also cholesterol issues, associated with diabetes, all of that. So those are two important factors that we want to take into consideration as we move forward into this topic. And matter of fact, when we look at the circadian rhythm, I actually use my meals in order to help fix my circadian rhythm when it's off. Because as I mentioned, the circadian rhythm plays a huge role in metabolic regulation. And so by actually using food to help reset it if you're off, it is a huge way to actually get some good results with that. And so if I notice that I'm not sleeping well at night and that I'm starting to have all these different issues, and a lot of times this stuff comes up out of stress. You have a couple stressful days, things aren't going too well. Next thing you know, you throw off your whole circadian rhythm. As a result, what I will do is I'll have one day where I'll put 3 meals in, and I'll have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And the whole reason is just to help reset my circadian rhythm clock, because the foods that you're eating in the, like I said, metabolic regulation is also going to be very important for actually setting this properly. And so let's go ahead and move on and continue this conversation. Best eating patterns for weight loss. Now, the best eating patterns for weight loss are going to be these as follows, okay? First of all, let's talk about the calorie restriction though with fasting, because if you want to actually do calorie restriction, you're trying to put yourself in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight, which is very important. If you're trying to lose weight, doing a calorie deficit is going to be important. Fasting is the way to go in order to accomplish this, okay? Doing 6 small meals a day and trying to put yourself into a deficit, like I said, I couldn't think of anything more miserable, because you're going to be craving food and you're just going to have energy problems. You're not going to feel good. And so if you want to put yourself into a deficit, use fasting, intermittent fasting, in order to accomplish this. It's going to be so much easier, because when you're in that fasted state, you won't have all the cravings. Constantly stimulating metabolism all day, you're not going to feel too great. Now, the other thing we have to take into consideration, as I mentioned before, is eating a healthy diet. Like I said, many of these studies say, oh, breakfast is so important. Make sure you're eating a big breakfast is important. Eating breakfast is associated with being healthier. Skipping breakfast is associated with a lot of different disease. But one of the things they never talk about is what you're eating. So we have to make sure that even though we're going to switch up the eating hours in order to get better results, we have to be very conscious of what we're eating. So intermittent fasting is going to be a great way, of course, to accomplish this. And we're going to talk about the hours in just a moment that work very well. But the thing is too, is that we have to be eating healthy. If you're trying to do intermittent fasting and you're trying to place your meals in a particular way, but yet you're eating unhealthy foods, it doesn't work out well. It doesn't work out well because you're going to have cravings. You're not going to feel well. Your energy will be plummeted. And then, of course, you won't lose weight. And so some of the best hours for eating, the best places to have your meals is, first of all, going to be between 9 and 5. So if you're doing 16 and 8 intermittent fasting, you're going to be fasting for 16 hours, eat your meals within an 8-hour period. This means that your first meal is going to be around 9 in the morning. And I really like this method. As a matter of fact, this is one of my favorite fasting hours right there. The reason for it is because we're most insulin sensitive in the morning, and then it shuts down eating far early in the evening, and you're not eating late into the night. And so the thing is here, when we look at 9 to 5, according to these different studies about metabolic regulation and the circadian rhythm, this 9 to 5 is going to be one of the best to follow. Now, even though this is one of my favorite, this is one that I never follow. The reason for it is because with my work schedule and everything else, it is almost impossible for me to follow that schedule like it is for many people. So though this is a favorite of mine, it doesn't really work out for me. 11 to 7 is my second favorite. Now that means you're gonna have your first meal around 11. You're going to be having no more food past 7 o'clock at night. I like this one right here, works well. And then 12 to 8 is also a very common one. It's probably one of my least favorites if you're going to be doing 2 meals a day. And so ideally what we're doing is 2 meals a day here. Now let's talk about the snacking between these meals, because we need to understand snacking rules. Now when we look at the average American, what studies show us and the statistics show us is that the average person is consuming between 4.5 to 10.5 meals per day. Now, I should say meals. Let's say they're eating between 4.5 to 10.5 times per day. So what we want to do for the best weight loss results is we want to eat 2 times a day, or we want to eat 1 time a day, which we'll get to in just a moment. So if we're going to try to get good results with weight loss, doing 2 meals a day, then we want to make sure that we're not snacking in between. Those are the snacking rules. We don't want to fall into this category where like the average person is consuming food 10.5 different times a day. That's a horrible way to try to lose weight if you are just stimulating your metabolism all day. So we want to make sure that we're not snacking. Those are the snacking rules, is don't do it. And then best time for one meal a day. And the thing is that if you can do one meal a day, like between 9 and 11, between like a 2-hour period right there, that's really excellent. It doesn't work out too well for a lot of people. Those are some of my favorite hours if you could work that out. But the other thing that we have to consider here, let's say that that doesn't work for you. Any other time is sufficient. We just want to make sure that we get it in before 8 o'clock at night. So if we get that one meal a day in before 8 o'clock at night, shut down eating, and then, start fasting. If we're doing one meal a day, of course, all the way till about, let's say 6 o'clock the next day, then these are going to be the best patterns in order to help you lose weight. So follow some of these patterns. If this is a 2 meal a day pattern, 1 meal a day pattern is awesome if you can do it between 9 and 11, but if not, you just shut it down before 8. What are the patterns that you're using? Put in the comment section below. I'd love to know which one you find works best for you, because of course these are, based off of some of the science I'm reading, based off some of my personal experience and what I see work for other people, but what works for you? Put down below. And then, like I said, down here, we want to make sure 1 meal a day, shutting it down before 8 o'clock, no snacking. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you want to learn more about intermittent fasting, check out this video over here that's going to talk about the things that you should never do when intermittent fasting. What I find is that 16 and 8 typically works very well for most people, regardless of the situation, but 1 meal a day is where you start putting too much stress on.